working. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, Shyla, I see you on there. I haven't done one of these for a while. Just checking while we're waiting for a few people to get started. I'm going to shoot this over to all right. Let me see if that is that how we looking on there, Shyla? Does it still look good? Can you hear me okay? Oh, there's my kitchen. I'm not sure on how to go about that. We'll just kind of get started. Oops, that's all right. And are we getting a few? Looks good. Can you hear me good? Okay. It's kind of funny because when I look at my camera and then I go over here and look at the computer, there's a bit of a delay. Yeah. All right, I think we're getting there. We're kind of get started here. How is everybody doing? All right, so we'll just get going. Oh, I am gonna pronounce your name wrong, and I'm hoping I'm close. Is that CZ girl? How we doing? Awesome. Glad to have you on board. I was asked, by the way, just so we get started and get things going off to the right kicker here, I was asked to jump on here and talk a little bit tonight by Shyla in the group. Sometimes you guys see me posting, sometimes you don't. And I get busy like everybody else, so sometimes timing just doesn't work where I can be a part of everything. That doesn't mean I'm out doing nothing. Just like proud of everybody on here, or everybody that gets a chance to see this later. We've all got lives and we're out doing things. My name is Don Rains. I'm actually known as the Director of Fun. There's some reasons for that, and the reason I teach that because, well, you know, today I had to take an emergency break and spend about an hour and a half, well, closer to about 2 hours watching the first Harry Potter movie with one of my grandsons. And you know, I posted a quote earlier that I got from the movie because it kind of caught me off guard. It was from the head wizard, and it was something to the effect of, it doesn't do any good to stay in dreamland and dream about the future without existing and working in the present. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's really what I pushed out of it, because that's the reality of it. So thus the Director of Fun is about how to get things going and how to do things in business, whatever your particular style is, whatever your particular focus might be, so that if you've done it right and you've set it up on an automated, on a systematized, on a built-in process, it takes a life, and therefore you can have a life. So we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of things. Let me check on here. I'll try to look back and forth on my computer, because as I'm doing it, I can kind of see any questions that might come up that I can't really see on the phone. And if you have them, don't hesitate to put them in. I like the information. I like to be able to correspond both ways. Give you a short history of the long version of Don Rains. So I was on a military career that was shortened at 10 years due to a leg injury. During that time, I used to jump out of airplanes and blow things up. That was my job. I liked it. I loved it. But I wasn't really planning to get out of the military. And so when I did, I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? Because when I first went in, I thought, well, I'll just do 3 years and get out. Kind of liked it, made rank fast, loved the leadership roles that I was able to get into. And all of a sudden, I'm out of the military. I'm a civilian. So I kind of jumped on and went into car sales. And I did real well. I was top salesman within the first month or two. Loved the industry as far as interacting with people. Didn't like the dealership mentality. Came across a job shortly about it within a year of doing that ended up running a YMCA camp up in the San Bernardino Mountains of California. Now, there was no money in that job, but I got to tell you, this was one of the funnest jobs I ever had. I had 150 to 250 kids up at my camp every weekend during the winter and every week during the late spring, summer, and early fall. We had bears, black bears and brown bears, so I used to chase them out of the camp. I've been in little 10-man cabins with a bear, getting it out. So I have done a lot of things a lot of people would consider nuts. I just don't like to be bored. So the other thing that happened after that was, not being a lot of money, I decided to go back into sales because I had things I needed to get done. Went back down to a car lot, large Lincoln dealership, and they had something else there too, but mostly, Mazda. And about 3 weeks after getting on the lot, I took over, ended up getting promoted and taking over as a sales manager and running sales teams. Did really well, but again, I didn't like dealership mentality. And somebody told me about this opportunity to jump into this program that was selling these memberships with this organization. And they had a lot of benefits for people. It was like $100, $125. Well, I went out and started selling that, and I was like, this is working. So I left the dealership. I started selling that, was making good money. They forgot to tell me that, oh, by the way, if you go get licensed, we also have insurance products and other type of stuff. So I ended up getting licensed. Did a lot of stuff in life insurance and annuities and indexed products, which, by the way, if you're going to invest and you're going to stay in that market, that's the best, safest place to put your money and still get growth, but you just don't have any downside. I'm not pitching because I don't sell it anymore, but just for the educational purposes. One week I happened to notice, I was in California at the time, that Salt Lake needed a sales manager, and so I convinced my wife to pack up and move, and we moved that weekend. And I showed up at my sister's house on Saturday night, and Sunday morning about 10 o'clock, I showed up over at the office and said, by the way, I'm here to assume the position for the sales manager, which another hour and a half after that I got. For that fraternal organization, we operated in 3 different countries. Utah had never made the books or the records. Nobody was getting awards. Nothing was getting done. And we ended up making the books. And we, went on a big cruise trip, 7-day with Celebrity Cruise Lines, which is one of the top lines out there. It's not a party boat. That's where you get treated like a king and a queen. More importantly, I had a lot of my agents go on that and win other awards as we went through. And we're going to talk about one of them in just a minute. From there, I kind of went into doing some real estate investing and selling real estate investing education. That was great. That was an industry that was making us 20 to 40 grand a month. When the recession hit, we just kind of got caught in some bad timing, like a lot of folks. I had a lot of homes that we had on short term, what's called hard money, and we just weren't able to move them to long-term money fast enough, or get them sold fast enough, and we kind of went under. And when I mean went under, we went from an 8,500 square foot home to living in my daughter's basement and starting over. So life can have some things that hit you, which is why I like talking about against all odds. That's kind of been my theme for a lot of stuff I'm doing this week. In fact, it's on my blog. My blog just got released and published tonight. So if you want to check that out, you can go to my page on the bio and see the link to my blog and get some more detailed information about that. But, let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and odds, being against all odds. I was reading an article. I read a couple articles the other morning. One of the articles listed 4 ways 4 things you need to do to pretty much guarantee that you can be wealthy. Now, you're going to love these because some of you have heard these before. And if you haven't, don't pay attention to them. But here's what they said. First one was, go to college and get a great degree. Now, when I make fun of that, I am not making fun of education. I absolutely believe in getting a formal education. I know a lot of people who are entrepreneurs and stuff will say, no, you don't want to do that. It's a waste of time. I disagree. I think education is imperative. It opens circles. It expands the mind. It allows you to be able to communicate in a variety of areas intelligently and be able to be knowledgeable about what's going on, both in our history as well as what's coming forward. So I'm a big believer in education, but conventional education will teach you how to get a job. That's what they teach. They teach you the skills to go out and get a job. They do not teach you how to be wealthy. But this list said, get a college education. Then the next one it said was invest in a 401k. Now, let me give you a little bit of financial. I am not a financial planner. I'm not licensed anymore, so I can give this advice, but I am, as far as information, but I am not giving financial advice. Just want to make sure we're clear. But you know, wealthy people don't tend to really buy mutual funds. Why? Because in a mutual fund, there is no downside protection. So when the market does like, oh, what's it doing today and yesterday? When it's doing that, you're losing money, right? My daughter come up and said, Dad, I lost $1,000 like yesterday in my 401k. Well, yeah, if you're in mutual funds, you don't have any control. Now, wealthy people, they look at things a little differently. So if they're investing, number one, if they are going to be in the market, they'll either do puts and calls, which means it's got an insurance set up so that if it raises to a certain level, it sells so that you capture your profit. And if it starts to go down, it sells at a certain point so that you don't lose everything you've got. A lot of people like indexed products, and indexed products are great. This is what I put a lot of clients to include family members in. And in the last 2 or 3 recessions, since I quit selling all that type of stuff, they never lost a dime. But what happens is when the market goes up, you don't get quite as much. So let's say the index you're tied to average 15% growth this year, just not hard to do. You may only get 12.5 or 13% credited to your account under an index plan. But when the market takes a dive like it's doing right now, you flatline. You just stay right level, and then you pick back up when the market goes up again. So you give up a little bit of the gain, but you negate all the loss. Great way to go. Well, in a 401k, you don't get to choose what you invest in. People think they do, but you only get to choose what they tell you you can choose from. And people don't realize you can buy properties, you can buy old cars, you can do all kinds of stuff to invest in for retirement if you structure it right, but nobody teaches that. Most financial planners don't want to teach you that because they can't make commissions on it. It's easy to do, it's a little bit of knowledge. If you're ever interested in that, I can always do a video for that. So that was the second thing they said to do. Well, if you're familiar with 401ks, you'll notice a lot of people haven't been able to rely on those for retirement for the very reasons we just discussed it. You might be making money, but at the time you need it, it might drop, or it might just drop and not have a recovery. I mean, look how long it took for the market to recover after the 2008, 2009 recession time. So that was the number 2. Number 3, buy a house. Now, this is not a bad suggestion. In fact, I can do a whole video series on this because buying a house is solid financial tactic. But here's what they said, not the best tactic. Buy a house, number 1. And if you can, do it on a 15-year note. That's good. Don't sell it even if you move, rent it out. That's good. But buying one house is not going to get you ahead financially because it is not an asset as long as you're living in it and paying the bill. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket, not takes money out of your pocket. So the house you currently live in, that's a liability until such time as you either sell it or rent it out, at which time it can become an asset. But until then, it's taking money out of your pocket every month. It's a liability. So it has the potential to be an asset, but if you're only buying one, you're not structuring yourself that well. Then the fourth one, I love this one. Ready? Live long. Oh yeah, that's because in their opinion, you can't have wealth in a younger age. You can't accumulate wealth in a short period of time. Now, I'm not talking about getting rich overnight type of stuff, but you also don't need to take 40 years to have a good lifestyle with a wealthy end. I mean, who wants to get up in 60 and 70, finally get wealthy, get out and go be able to do things, because now you got all this time on your hand that you can't physically go do anything. Wow, that's exciting. So those are their 4 structures. And then I read another article that said, hey, if you're over 40, you had about a 1 in 55 chance of being extremely wealthy. And if you were under 40, the odds of you getting wealthy were significantly worse. I mean, 1 in several hundreds. And some of that was due to economics. Some of it was due to a lot of things. One of them was the type of education we're putting out. People are still going out for masters and stuff like that, but in a lot of fields, it's outdated kind of educational tactics. Now, the medical field isn't that way, but a lot of other fields are. So you have these people that are spending, you know, 80 to 100 or more $1,000 to get an education, depending on where they went, and they're coming out hunting jobs because they're not there. So this is what the gurus, this is what the economists are putting out there. Obstacles against all odds. What do you think you have to go out and accomplish that? What kind of odds are going to get in your way to do it their way? Well, number one, how many people are actually staying in the same job more than 6 or 7 years nowadays? You know, when my parents and grandparents grew up, you worked for the same company for 30 or 40 years, and then you retired, and they sent you a pension check. In 1971, that changed from a defined pension program to a defined contribution program, where now you had to put money into your retirement savings, but we never implemented anything to teach people how to be investors. We only taught them how to be savers, and savers do not make money. In fact, they lose money because your interest rate that you're getting on your bank account doesn't keep up or surpass inflation and taxation. So we've created some issues. So that can be an obstacle. Have you met some people that had some issues, some problems, whether it was money or time or family or whatever, that they couldn't get that kind of an education? Maybe if you're like some people I know, that kind of education just wasn't going to happen here. So, which is nothing wrong, because you can go into vocational school, which, you know, hey, you go be a welder, 6 weeks of schooling to be a welder, you're making $80,000 a year, and you don't have $80,000 to $100,000 worth of debt to pay off. So it's not a bad thing. But again, you're trading hours for dollars. What are some other obstacles? Well, if you know that one home is not going to take care of everything for retirement, how do you get more homes? Especially if you don't know what you're doing. You know, and in my personal life here recently, I've had the unexpected reality of watching people pass away early in life. Not everybody gets to live long. So those can be some challenges, overcoming obstacles. So what other ways do you have? I mean, there's some other things you can get out and do. How about getting out and starting or running your own business? And there's a couple of ways that people look at this. So I'm going to be kind of general, although there are very good specific differences. You have self-employed. The self-employed is great. You can make much better money being self-employed if you've got the right setup and everything going. However, you're married to the business, because if you're not there running it, you're not making money. Now, if you've ever, I don't know if you like to read, I'll give you a couple of books to put on your list if you haven't done so. One would be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Think and Grow Rich should be the very Bible of everything. And another one that's really good to read is called The Cash Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. And in there he talks about the 4 sectors of people. So you have employees, that's what most people are used to, right? You're trading dollars for hours, and you work for the first 3 or 4 months a year to pay the government, and then you get to keep what's left. And then underneath that, you have self-employed. Now, self-employed is a little different, because with self-employed, you can make more money, and if you structure it correctly, you can pay less in some taxes, but you'll pay more in self-employment taxes. So it's kind of a twist, but you can make significantly more, but you got to be working all the time. Then over here on this side, you've got a business owner. Now, business owner is different than self-employed. A business owner, a true business owner, and I'm going to offend some people when I say this, but a true business owner is able to set up a business that operates and runs, whether they are there or not, continues to make money. So some people, they get into some of these programs, even that they're running and making money from home, but they're constantly having to monitor stuff. They're constantly having to be active with stuff. They're constantly having to recruit stuff, people, all that type of stuff. And eventually, if they don't, the business dies. So they're thinking they're a business owner, but the reality is they're self-employed, but it's a little bit of a hybrid, but it can go away. And then the last one is an investor. And to get to the investor part, you need to be a business owner first. And as a business owner, you make money, lots of money, but that money isn't there to create your lifestyle. It's not there. I mean, it is somewhat. You want to have a nice life and do those things, but you take the bulk of that money above that and you put that into buying income producing assets, houses, gold, whatever it is that you have a fancy for. And when the income from these income producing assets now provide the coverage of all the income that you need to take care of your lifestyle, your family, and the activities that you want to do, that's where wealth comes in. Because now, if XYZ company you're working for in network marketing changes their products and you don't like it, or they cut you out, which happens, or they get shut down, which happens, you're not out of business. You're not starting over. You might want to start over in that area, but you have developed an income base coming from your investments that is now paying for your lifestyle, regardless of the companies. Because I'm here to tell you, companies go out of business. And if you haven't watched them, especially in network marketing, there's several big ones that everybody thought was going to make all this money, and a year later, they're done. So those are the 4 things that you need to be aware of to be able to have a decent conversation and come in about overcoming all odds. Because to get to that investor, you're going to have to go through some cycles and some knowledge development. That knowledge development between the most valuable piece of real estate you'll have in your whole entire life, these years, is going to come in self-development. It's going to come in skill set. It's going to come in skilling up. And it's going to come in practice, doing and implementing, and knowing that sometimes you're going to get going and it will fail, and being willing to get up and go again. So let me give you a story. I like stories. Over the years, I've had people that have worked for me, and especially when I was in the financial services, I had about 35 agents at one time. I had this young girl. I'm going to give you the abbreviated version. You can see more on my blog. But she came and applied for a job as a recommendation from a friend of hers who was already one of my agents. And she came in. She wasn't the best well-dressed. Her English was a little bit rough. It was her second language. She'd never been in sales skills. In fact, all she'd done is manual labor jobs. And when I say manual labor jobs, I'm not demeaning those, but hers was from the cleaning industry. She had been pretty much a maid type jobs, cleaning hotels, houses, that type of stuff, trying to get by. She had about a 6 or 7-year-old daughter, roughly. She had a husband, and I'm going to use that word real loosely because he was pretty much wasting oxygen. And she came in to interview. Now, I hired her. And my district manager and even a couple of my agents are looking at me like, why did you hire her? Well, first off, Don never looks at where somebody's been. I don't care what somebody's background is. What I do care about is where you at now, and where you're trying to get to, and what kind of drive do you have to get there. Because if we can put those 2 things together, we can make a huge, huge difference. So I hired her. Let me tell you, this young lady got in there and started working. She was there, and she was studying, because not only did she have to learn sales skills, which are prominent if you're going to be in sales, right? She also had to learn insurance, and she had to learn annuities. She had to learn how to talk to people, because that wasn't a skill. She had to learn people interaction. She had to learn how to read people when they're sitting with her and read body language and all this type of stuff that we were working with her. Now, we helped her, but she did the work. And she asked a ton of questions. Some people were like, really? But she knew if she didn't ask, she wasn't going to have the information she needed to get out there and do what she was trying to do. And she had goals. She had things she wanted for her and her daughter. Let me tell you, in under a year, this young lady drove in with a 2-year-old, I think it was a 2-year-old, so it was a new used Ford Explorer, 4-wheel drive, fully loaded, decked out. Payments weren't going to be an issue for her, and she put a nice down payment on it. She was in the process of moving into a nice place instead of the slummy area that she had been in, because that's what her husband was doing. Oh yeah, and the husband, he was gone. He was out. She drove in to show me what she got. Brought her daughter with me. Daughter was all dressed up. Mom informed me that she had a whole new wardrobe. Mom had a whole new wardrobe. This young lady made it on the cruise. She made it some high awards with that company. She changed her life. But what did she have to overcome in the process? What kind of odds were against her? She had language barriers. She didn't have any skill sets for sales. She didn't have any interpersonal skills with people. She didn't have a clue about insurance or financial services. She was strapped for money. And I'm going to emphasize, when I say strapped for money, she would run home in the mornings and on weekends around appointments and clean like she was doing to earn enough money to keep a roof over her head and buy gas for her vehicle while she was figuring out how to get this done. She didn't do that for very long, but that's what she did in the beginning. She had a ton of obstacles. Now, a lot of people would run into this and they would say, hey, can't do it. A lot of people's friends would say, what, are you nuts? You can't do that. You're going to be working all those hours. This is something new. You don't have any of the skills. Because people, in my personal opinion, and I know you've heard this before, are pretty much like crabs in a barrel. They see somebody else climbing up and trying to make something out of themselves, and you got people trying to pull them back down because they don't want you to succeed and make them feel bad. This young lady didn't pay attention to any of those people. Think about business in general from folks you know. I mean, we can look at some great ones. Oh, let's see. There's some guy that you tend to buy computers and software from Microsoft. He didn't do well in college, broke out, started working out of a garage. Look what that turned into. You think there were some obstacles to overcome? Oh yeah. This program that we're using right now to have this live on, that guy had some issues to go through to get it up and running. I bet we could name a lot. See, people get it in their head that these reasons are justification not to go forward. Here's one of my great inspirations that I love. Elon Musk. Now, I don't know everything about him, but here's what I do know. He's not a scientist. And he loves to get interaction from people, whether they're in his employee group or not. He's not a scientist. Well, yeah, but he did have some rockets head up there, right? And he's got these electric cars that are selling for $70,000 and $80,000, so they're doing pretty well. And there we go. Sorry about that. Why? Because he studies himself, and then he brings in people around him to supplement what he doesn't know. And when he can do that, he can achieve anything. He doesn't let the obstacles be odds against him. He makes those stepping stones to get to where he wants to go. In my video, I talk about pioneers crossing the country, and you'll want to catch that. People knowing they had a chance of dying still sign up to cross the country. Why? Because they didn't care what the obstacles were. They knew what they wanted. So let me wrap this up in a different light. Where are you at with your business? Where are you at with your goals? Because they're not my goals. They're not Shyla's goals. They're not your mom and dad's or your spouse's or your kids or anybody else's goals. They're yours. But what you going to tell yourself, or what are you going to ask yourself in 5 years? Or are you going to look back and say, well, it just wasn't for me? Because the only choice that comes into play is ours. And the only one that can make that choice is us. Against all odds. We all have our odds against us. Every one of them is going to be different. Some of us are going to have financial barriers. When I got started coming back into this, I told you I lost everything. Started in my daughter's basement. I was driving a semi-truck, working from the back of it, trying to get back on my feet. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. I don't know where you're at, but what does it take? Skill sets. I got started 15 years ago and before, when I was doing all this great stuff in banking, it was all belly to belly. And I did seminars and public speaking and all this kind of stuff to drive business. Well, I get started and it's all online. It's all digital. I don't even know what these words mean. I signed up to take one of the best marketing educational courses I could find. Wow, this is how you do it? Now I got it on automation. Stuff's going out. In fact, I'm doing some courses and they'll just be selling out on automation. Teaching people here. Whatever your obstacles are, write them down, line them up, and figure out how you're going to get through them. My wife's favorite saying is, and I hold a lot of value to my wife. Her name's Terry. She's the light of my life. But let me tell you, one of her favorite sayings was when we first met, and she said for all these years we've been married, whatever's in your way, you figure out how to get over it, around it, under it, or bulldoze right through it. But be damned if you're going to let somebody else or something else get in the way of what you want to do in life. How about you? Something to think about, folks. Don't want to tie up all your time. Why? Because I am the director of fun. And I got chow coming up here tonight. I've got some fun stuff to do. But listen, I've got to start working on some courses. That's going to be fun. Why? Because it's going to free up more time down the road. Hey, leave some comments down in here. Pass this around and share it with some folks that we might be able to help inspire and change some lives or some mental thought processes and help people move forward from wherever they're at. Check out my blog. You can find that on my bio. And let's help people grow, right? Hey, Don, the director of fun. I hope you got some value tonight. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy putting out the information. I enjoy helping people succeed. That is one of the best things, best rewards out of life. I want to thank Shyla for inviting me to come on here and do this, and hope that it's been a benefit for at least one person, if not more. Well, Director of Fun is out of here. Got to go. Y'all have a good night. Until the next time.